right, guys, it's Lula time. And look, let me just say, I'm not drawing a direct comparison. It's a different situation. But people ask me why I talk about this so much. I think, like, I don't know. Why would you talk so much about, we'll get to that footage in just a second. Why would you talk so much about, I don't know, Nelson Mandela when he was in prison? All right. I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing before people freak out. It's definitely not, just in terms of like literally the amount of time and where they were coming from, and Lula having already served as president. But the reality is that this guy was put in jail during Brazil's military junta years because he was a labor union leader. He came from absolutely nothing to become president and really arguably be the best president in modern politics in terms of what he delivered for his people. And it's not just that Brazil's rightward shift has stakes for the United States. Okay, so going back to 2009, when the Honduras coup, which removed Manuel Zelaya from power, and the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, at the very least, looked the other way on, if not, in Clinton's case, were fairly complacent with, to the fact that Bolsonaro, who is polling second to Lula, after being imprisoned on the flimsiest of evidence and being kept from speaking to the public, still leads the polls. He is the leading candidate for president in Brazil, hands down. The second to him is a guy named Bolsonaro, who has talked about the reason that Brazil has problems is because of Africans and indigenous people. He told a woman journalist that she wasn't good enough looking to rape. And his son recently took a picture with Steve Bannon and said, you know, essentially with a caption of like, we have the same politics. And Mattis is in Brazil right now talking about heightened military cooperation with Brazil. Brazil is a regional power in Latin America. And this story matters in and of itself, but it is globally connected to whether we keep syncing up hard right neoliberal to potentially literally fascistic regimes, or we begin reversing these things. And Lula is not only was an incredibly successful president, and not only is the case against him unbelievably questionable, he's also of those movements like the Landless Peoples Movement, the Global Union Movement, which is why he has support from everything from NUMSA in South Africa to the AFL-CIO here. So it really matters. And tomorrow, the Workers' Party is going to petition the Supreme Court, which has denied, Lula's right to habeas corpus, which has sentenced him to prison before any of his appeals have been exhausted. And he has been, as I say, sentenced in such a manner where nothing has actually been proven. This is all conjecture and part of a much broader corruption investigation, which has dug up much more serious things about things like the current president who is serving right now, talking about bribing people. The Temer government has instituted a mass austerity program, which has meant that Brazil under Lula, which eliminated hunger as an example, is tumbling right back down in UN indicators. So let's play. Yeah, we can play the footage now. But Lula, in addition, this is some footage of Lula. So the petition is tomorrow, and today in the New York Times, Lula published a column called "There's a Right-Wing Coup Underway in Brazil." And he writes, 16 years ago, Brazil was in crisis. The future was uncertain, and our dreams of developing into one of the world's most prosperous and democratic countries seemed imperiled. The idea that one day our citizens might enjoy the comfortable living standards of our peers in the Europe and Western democracy seemed to be fading away. Less than 2 decades after the dictatorship ended, some wounds from that period were still raw. He goes on to talk about getting elected in 2002 as the first labor union leader elected president in Brazil. And he says, here's some of the things that he did in his 2, and again, very moderate terms. The minimum wage was increased by 50%. Our Bolsa Familia program, which insisted in impoverished families while simultaneously ensuring the children received quality education, won international renown. We proved that fighting poverty was good economic policy. And then he talks about how our progress was interrupted not through the ballot box, though Brazil has free and fair elections. Instead, President Dilma Rousseff was impeached and removed from office for an action that even her opponents admitted was not an impeachable offense. Then I, too, was sent to prison after a dubious trial on corruption and money laundering charges. My imprisonment is the latest phase of a slow-motion coup designed to permanently marginalize progressive forces in Brazil. It's intended to prevent the Workers' Party from again being elected to the presidency. And of course, the Workers' Party has won 4 elections in a row. No right-wing forces in Brazil have actually won anything. It goes on to say the right-wing forces in Brazil have wasted no time in implementing their agenda. The deeply unpopular administration of President Michel Temer has approved a constitutional amendment that puts a 20-year cap on public spending and has enacted various changes in labor laws that will ease outsourcing and weaken workers' bargaining rights and even their right to an 8-day work week. I do not feel sorry for myself. I've been in jail before under Brazil's military dictatorship for nothing more than defending workers' rights. The dictatorship fell. The people who are abusing their power today will also fall. I don't want us to be above the law, but the trial must be free, fair, and impartial. These right-wing forces convicted me and imprisoned me, ignoring the overwhelming evidence of my innocence and deny me habeas corpus only to try to stop me from running for the presidency. I ask for respect for democracy, and if they want to defeat me for real, do it in the elections. So that's President Lula, and we need to have solidarity with left forces in Brazil and with Lula and the landless movement and the union movement and the people trying to find justice for Marielle Franco, who was assassinated by right-wing paramilitary and gang forces connected with the police in Brazil. We need to do that. It matters in and of itself, and it has major implications for how we're synchronizing the global system.